Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. You're watching Six Path Weeb, where we dive deep into fanfiction, theories, and alternate storylines from the worlds we love. Today, we're continuing our fanfic series with Naruko of the Fifth Hat, Part 2. The story intensifies as choices carry heavier consequences and the path forward becomes far more dangerous. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is created for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any anime footage used in this video. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. With that said, let's get started. Kisame crossed his arms and sighed, clearly unimpressed. You let a shadow copy surprise you, Itachi? That was unexpected. Itachi calmly adjusted his cloak. It was a test. Anyone who can create that technique at such a young age shows promise. Naruko is stronger than she realizes. Kisame glanced around the quiet village outskirts. Well, she's gone now. Probably training somewhere. Yes, Itachi replied thoughtfully. Her friends likely went to inform their teachers. That would be the wise choice. Kisame gave a small laugh. You always think 10 steps ahead. Experience teaches patience, Itachi said. Let us leave for now. Causing worry would not help anyone. As they prepared to depart, a firm voice stopped them. Please remain where you are. They turned to see Kurenai and Asuma standing together, calm but alert. They were not angry, only serious. Itachi, Asuma said evenly, we need to talk. Let's resolve this peacefully. Kisame raised an eyebrow. Straight to business, huh? Before tensions could rise, Kurenai raised her hand gently. This ends here. No tricks. No fighting. To demonstrate, she cast a harmless illusion, not to trap or frighten, but to show insight. The world briefly shimmered into a quiet forest scene, filled with soft light and stillness. It was meant to encourage reflection, not fear. Kisame blinked. Huh. That's actually kind of relaxing. Itachi nodded in approval. You've grown, Kurenai. The illusion faded naturally, leaving everyone unharmed and thoughtful. Elsewhere, Naruko sat atop a training post, swinging her legs as she practiced focusing her chakra. She smiled to herself. I'm still learning, she said softly, but I won't run away from responsibility anymore. She remembered the kindness of her teachers, the encouragement of her friends, and the belief they had in her. That belief gave her strength, not to fight, but to grow. That night, the village remained safe. No one was hurt. No one was frightened. And Naruko slept peacefully, dreaming of the strong and caring ninja she would one day become. A gentle turning point. Why didn't it work? Kurenai whispered, her voice trembling with worry. That technique was supposed to help you stay calm. How are you still standing? Hinata's eyes filled with tears. Kurenai knelt beside her, reaching out gently, but Hinata stepped back, shaking her head. My father was right, Hinata said softly. I'm weak. I keep trying, but I never feel strong enough. That isn't true, Kurenai said, her voice warm and steady. You are learning. Growth takes time. Hinata sniffed and looked away. You said you would help me believe in myself. But I still feel scared. Kurenai paused, then smiled kindly. Feeling scared doesn't mean you've failed. It means you care. Hinata slowly looked up. For a moment, Kurenai noticed a picture on the wall behind her, an old memory of a student who had once struggled just as much. The realization made her gasp softly. And then she woke with a start. Kurenai sat up, breathing deeply. The room was quiet and peaceful. Don't worry, Kurenai-san, a calm voice said. There's still plenty of time. She turned to see familiar faces, all smiling gently, just as they always had. The heaviness faded, leaving only reassurance behind. Learning on the road. A little later, down a sunny forest path, Naruko sat on a fallen log, staring at the leaf stuck to her palm. Why won't this leaf stay put? She muttered, puffing out her cheeks in frustration. Jiraiya sighed dramatically. Focus, kid. Shin stepped forward with a polite smile. Naruko-san, when you get frustrated, your energy becomes scattered. If you relax, you'll have an easier time. Naruko blinked. Oh. That makes sense. And, Shin added, you could use your shadow copies. When they practice, you learn too. Naruko's face lit up. That's a great idea. She took a calming breath, smiled, and formed her hand sign. Shadow copy technique. Several cheerful copies of Naruko appeared, each grabbing a leaf and heading off to practice. The original Naruko skipped over to Jiraiya. Since they're practicing, can you show me that spinning energy trick again? Jiraiya chuckled. Not yet. We'll need some supplies first. Supplies? Naruko tilted her head. Water balloons, he said simply. Naruko laughed. That sounds fun already. She turned to Shin. Can you teach me something while we walk? Shin thought for a moment. I know just the thing. He formed a simple hand sign and, in a gentle blur, appeared farther up the road. Naruko's eyes sparkled. She ran to catch up. How did you move like that? That's called the body flicker, Shin explained. It's about moving smoothly and confidently, not rushing. Naruko nodded thoughtfully. So it's like trusting myself? Shin smiled. Exactly. Naruko tried it. She focused, moved forward a short distance, and laughed. I moved. Not far, but I did it. That's progress, Jiraiya said proudly. Behind them, Naruko's shadow copies continued practicing, laughing and encouraging one another under the warm light of the trees. No one was watching from the shadows. The forest felt safe, calm, and full of possibility. And Naruko kept walking forward, learning one step at a time. Earlier that morning, 3 respected elders from the 3rd Hokage's former council and 1 newer advisor from the 5th Hokage's council gathered in a quiet, carefully protected room. They were unaware that any outsiders had passed through the village that day, and the room they had chosen ensured that no one could overhear them. Across the table sat Shikamaru Nara, the youngest person present. He leaned back slightly in his chair, looking bored, though his sharp mind was quietly taking in every detail. Koharu cleared her throat, gently pulling Shikamaru out of his thoughts. You are likely wondering why we asked you to come here, Nara-san. Shikamaru glanced around the smooth metal walls. There was only one door, sealed from the inside, and faint symbols rested in each corner of the room. Even to him, it was impressive. Not really, he replied calmly. But I'm listening. Homura nodded approvingly. This place is known as the Silent Room. What is said here cannot be heard outside, and what is learned here must remain protected. Shikamaru sighed lightly. So, what's said here stays here. That's simple enough. Danzo studied the young strategist carefully. He saw a thoughtful mind, one that preferred peace and balance over excitement. Even with his relaxed posture, Shikamaru clearly cared deeply about the village. We are sharing this information with you, Danzo said, because the Hokage trusts your judgment. Shikamaru straightened slightly. I understand. The elder slid the first folder across the table. This contains records of past village guardians, Homura explained. Their service, their roles, and the lessons they left behind. Shikamaru read quietly, absorbing the information with ease. When finished, he closed the folder and returned it. Next, he said simply. The second folder was thicker. This is a detailed map of the village, Koharu said. It shows every pathway and shelter, so the village can always be kept safe. Shikamaru studied it carefully, memorizing routes and locations. He nodded once he was done, earning a rare look of approval from the elders. At last, only one folder remained. It was sealed. Koharu placed her hand over it. This final record contains difficult truths. Nothing frightening, but things that must be handled with care. Danzo added, before you open it, you must promise to keep this knowledge limited to the Hokage and this council. Shikamaru nodded seriously. I promise. Homura opened the seal and placed the folder in front of him. Shikamaru read the title quietly. Project X. At that moment, his thoughts drifted briefly to the Hokage herself, Naruko Uzumaki. Naruko was bright, determined, and endlessly hopeful. She believed that understanding people was the key to protecting the village, not fear or force. Shikamaru knew that whatever this project was, his role would be to help guide Naruko wisely, making sure her kindness and optimism were always supported by careful planning. He closed the folder gently. This isn't about control, Shikamaru said. It's about responsibility. The elders exchanged thoughtful glances. For the village, for Naruko, and for a peaceful future, Shikamaru was ready. Kurenai felt very tired. Not the kind of tired that came from a long walk or a busy day, but the kind that settled deep in her heart. She found herself trapped in a strange illusion, one that reflected her own worries and fears back at her. Familiar faces appeared, but they were only echoes, shaped by doubt rather than truth. A calm voice spoke, not cruel, but distant and challenging, like a riddle meant to be solved. You have done well to endure this far, Kurenai, the voice said. But challenges remain. What will you choose to do? Kurenai took a slow breath. She realized something important: this illusion was not meant to harm her. It was testing her resilience, her understanding of herself. The words she heard were not real judgments, but reflections of fear she had carried for too long. "I don't have to fight this," she whispered. "I only have to understand it." She remembered a lesson she once shared with her students: rest can be strength, and calm can be clarity. Gently, she formed a hand sign and focused on peaceful thoughts. A soothing technique settled over her like a warm blanket, and she allowed herself to fall into a calm, healing sleep. When Kurenai awoke, the illusion had faded. Nearby, her allies were already moving to protect one another. Asuma stood watchfully, making sure everyone was safe. There was no chaos, only teamwork and trust. Elsewhere, two powerful shinobi faced each other, not with anger, but with careful respect. Guy stood tall, full of energy and confidence, while his opponent remained calm and observant. Their exchange was not about harm, but about testing skill and resolve. "This is what it means to grow," Guy said with a determined smile. "We challenge each other so we can become better." Across the rooftops, Kakashi coordinated calmly with his students. Sasuke listened closely, learning that sometimes the bravest choice was to protect rather than pursue. Shikamaru quietly supported everyone with clever timing and teamwork. And far away, Naruko trained tirelessly, unaware that her name had come up as a reminder of hope. She was known not for rivalry, but for her kindness, her persistence, and her belief that everyone could change for the better. By the end of the night, no one had been hurt. Everyone had learned something. Kurenai smiled softly as she rested, surrounded by friends who cared for her. This, she thought, is what being a shinobi truly means. A new path for Naruko. The visitors exchanged a quiet look as the sun dipped lower in the sky. "The numbers are shifting," one of them said calmly. "Too many eyes are on us now. We should go while we still have the advantage of surprise." With a brief nod, they stepped back, disappearing in a swirl of motion that looked more like a gust of wind than anything dangerous. In seconds, they were gone. The clearing felt strangely quiet. Sasuke clenched his fists, frustration written all over his face. He took a step forward, but stopped when he felt a firm hand on his shoulder. Shikamaru was holding him back, steady and calm. "Don't rush after them," Shikamaru said. "This isn't the right moment." "Let me go," Sasuke snapped, though his voice wavered more with emotion than anger. Shikamaru didn't move. Sometimes the smartest choice is to wait. Nearby, Kakashi sighed softly, hoping his student would one day find peace instead of letting old feelings guide every step. Guy crossed his arms, disappointed that the tense moment had ended so abruptly, but even he knew that knowing when to stop was part of growing stronger. A few days later, far from that tense meeting, laughter echoed near a small town gate. "Quick step technique," Naruko called out happily. With a puff of smoke, she vanished, and then reappeared far ahead, nearly bouncing with excitement as she waved back at the others. "I did it," she shouted. "I really did it." Shin smiled and nodded in approval. "That was well done. She picked it up faster than I expected." Jiraiya crossed his arms, pretending to grumble. Yeah. Still, she doesn't need to announce every move like it's a parade." He raised his voice. "Naruko. Remember those practice helpers we left behind? You can let them go now." Naruko nodded quickly. As she focused, the extra helpers vanished, and new memories of practice filled her mind. She blinked a few times, then grinned. "Phew. Feels like I studied all afternoon," she said. "But it's totally worth it." Her eyes sparkled as she turned back. "Okay. Next lesson. You promised we'd use water balloons for that super cool spinning technique." Jiraiya covered his face with his hand. "This kid is going to wear me out." Shin laughed. "Maybe. But she never gives up, and that counts for a lot." Jiraiya lowered his hand and smiled despite himself. "Yeah. That part's true." He looked at Naruko, who was already racing ahead, full of hope and energy. "She's got a long road ahead," he thought, "but she's walking it with a good heart." Glowing star emoji, Naruko and the lesson of steady growth, glowing star emoji. "Okay. So I just focus my chakra and pop the water balloon?" "Easy," Naruko said confidently, placing her hands on her hips with a bright grin. She, Jiraiya, and Shin had arrived at a quiet town earlier that afternoon. After finding a cozy inn and gathering training supplies, the group headed to an open field just outside town. The grass swayed gently in the breeze, making it a perfect place to practice. Jiraiya had just finished explaining the first step of a new technique, and Naruko was buzzing with excitement. Jiraiya chuckled softly, clearly amused by her enthusiasm. "We'll see about that," he said kindly. "Naruko, make 10 shadow clones." With a quick motion, Naruko created 10 identical versions of herself. They stood proudly, ready for instructions. Jiraiya pointed to 6 of them. "You 6 will line up over there and practice controlling chakra using these water balloons." He then turned to the remaining 4. "You'll go with Shin and practice movement techniques. Remember, smooth and quiet control is the goal." The 4 clones nodded and followed Shin to a wide, open area. Naruko respected Shin a lot and felt happy knowing she was learning from him too, even through her clones. Meanwhile, the real Naruko watched as the 6 clones each received a water balloon. She crossed her arms and frowned. "Hey! Why are they getting all the fun?" she asked. "Don't I get to try?" Jiraiya smiled calmly. "Everyone has a role today. You'll get your turn soon. For now, I have something else planned for you." Naruko tilted her head. "Like what?" "A one-on-one sparring session," Jiraiya replied. "No clones. Just you and me." Naruko's eyes sparkled. She stepped into a fighting stance with confidence. "All right. I'm ready." Jiraiya studied her stance carefully, then shook his head gently. "You've got great spirit, but your balance needs work." Naruko blinked. "Really? I figured it out myself." "That's impressive," Jiraiya said kindly, "but learning the basics will help you grow even stronger." They sparred briefly, and within moments, Naruko found herself sitting in the grass, surprised but unharmed. Jiraiya offered a hand and helped her up. "Don't feel bad," he said. "This is how learning begins." Naruko brushed the grass from her sleeves and smiled. "So, you're going to teach me properly?" "Of course," Jiraiya replied. "We'll work step by step." Despite being tired, Naruko felt proud. She knew this training would help her become the kind of ninja who protects others with skill and heart. Herb emoji. Meanwhile, back in the village, herb emoji. Sasuke sat quietly in a hospital room, staring out the window. He felt frustrated, but also thoughtful. Shikamaru lay nearby, relaxed as always. "You're not going anywhere," he said calmly. "So you might as well use the time wisely." After a long pause, Sasuke sighed. "I guess training is the best thing I can do right now." Shikamaru nodded. "That's the smartest choice." With that, Sasuke left to train, determined to grow stronger, but without rushing into danger. Glowing star emoji. Back on the training field, glowing star emoji. After hours of practice, Shin clapped his hands happily. "Excellent work. You're all improving your control." One clone laughed. "You don't have to be so formal, Shin." Shin smiled shyly. "Old habits." The clone then asked, "Hey, could you teach us about sword techniques sometime?" Shin blinked in surprise. "You're interested in that?" "Yeah." The clone replied. "Learning new skills makes us better all around." Shin nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps someday. For now, keep mastering your basics." The clone smiled, knowing Naruko would be proud of them. Rainbow emoji. Closing note, rainbow emoji. Naruko's journey isn't about rushing to the finish line, it's about learning patience, teamwork, and believing in herself. With kind teachers and steady effort, she's growing stronger every day. And no matter what challenges come next, Naruko faces them with a smile, a strong heart, and a desire to learn. A new path for Naruko. Shin blinked in surprise. "You buried him? You know the bounty on him was very high. Even his sword could have brought a fortune." The shadow clone's eyes widened, then she shrugged. "Wow, that is a lot. But Zabuza wasn't just a bad person. At the end, he stopped someone who was hurting others, and he truly cared about his student. Naruko says ninjas shouldn't be treated like tools. She wants to find her own way, one that feels right." Shin paused. The belief was strong, honest, and full of hope. It reminded him that there were many ways to walk the path of a ninja. The clone tugged him out of his thoughts. "So, can you teach us sword skills?" she asked. All 4 clones leaned forward eagerly. Shin studied them carefully, then shook his head. "No. A sword demands strict focus and rigid movement. Naruko is more adaptable and energetic. A sword would only hold her back." The lead clone crossed her arms. "That's disappointing. Can't you teach us something else? Anything?" Shin smiled faintly. "Very well. Do you have kunai with you?" The clones quickly checked. "Yes." He nodded. "Good. Two of you should rest now. Learning works best when you are not exhausted. The two clones vanished in puffs of smoke. Shin turned to the remaining ones and took out a large shuriken, holding it carefully. Tell me, he asked gently, what do you know about chakra threads? Meanwhile, at the training field. Elsewhere, Naruko stood in a wide clearing, practicing her stances under the watchful eye of her mentor. She had been training for hours, but she didn't give up. Steady, her teacher said. Balance first. A strong stance helps everything else. Naruko adjusted her footing, concentrating. She listened closely, correcting her posture with each instruction. When she moved, her body followed naturally, even if it wasn't perfect yet. That's better, her mentor said. Reset. Naruko returned to her starting position, breathing slowly. She focused on staying calm and remembering what she had learned. Each movement was a step forward. Good effort, the mentor added. You're learning faster than you think. Naruko smiled, feeling proud, not because she was perfect, but because she was improving. The clone's discovery. Nearby, several shadow clones were working together on a chakra exercise using balloons. Some chatted cheerfully while waiting their turn, debating which ramen flavor was the most comforting after a long day. One clone stayed focused, carefully guiding her chakra in a smooth, spinning motion. The balloon stretched and wobbled. Then, pop. She blinked, surprised, then laughed. I think I figured something out. Suddenly, Naruko called out from across the field. Okay, everyone, regroup. The clones nodded and dispersed, their shared knowledge flowing back to her. Naruko stood still for a moment as the information settled in. Her eyes lit up. I get it now, she said softly, excitement bubbling in her voice. She clenched her fist, not in anger, but in determination. Step by step, she was finding her own way. Hinata Hyuga felt a gentle knot of worry resting in her chest. Earlier that day, she and her teammates had learned that their kind and patient sensei had gone on an important mission involving two well-known travelers with troubling reputations. No one had heard from her since. What concerned Hinata even more was the strange rumor that the travelers had been asking questions about Naruko Uzumaki of all people. Hinata could not understand why anyone would want to chase Naruko. Naruko was loud, bright, and sometimes silly, but she was also brave and kind. Hinata had seen Naruko stand tall in difficult moments, never giving up, even when things seemed impossible. Thinking of Naruko always gave Hinata courage. At least Naruko was not alone. She was traveling with Jiraiya-sama, one of the legendary Sannin, to search for another powerful healer. Hinata trusted that Naruko would be safe with someone so experienced watching over her. That trust helped Hinata focus on her own training that afternoon. It was her first full day back on the training ground since she had been carefully healed after the village emergency weeks ago. The sunshine warmed the stone paths as Hinata practiced slow, precise movements, working on ideas she had quietly developed during her time resting. She dreamed of improving her family's gentle fighting style in a peaceful way, finding methods that focused on balance, control, and protection rather than force. One idea involved extending her reach with calm chakra flow. Another was a softer defensive movement that conserved energy, making it easier for her to maintain focus over time. Hinata wanted to grow stronger, not to show off, but to believe in herself. She especially wanted her father to see her progress. And, deep in her heart, she hoped Naruko would notice too. When evening arrived, a quiet member of the Hyuga household approached Hinata and politely asked her to visit her father's study. Hinata hurried through the halls, pausing briefly when she noticed two unfamiliar adults speaking in hushed voices. They looked surprised to see her, but said nothing. Outside the study, her father stood calmly, an Anbu guard beside him. Hinata, Hyashi said gently, do you know where your sensei went today? Hinata nodded. Hi. She went to speak with two travelers to help protect the village. Hyashi nodded as well. During the meeting, your sensei became mentally overwhelmed from a rare illusion technique meant to confuse, not harm. She is resting at the hospital now. The healers wish to keep the environment calm. Hinata's eyes widened with concern. You and your teammates are allowed to visit, Hyashi continued. Would you like to go now? Hinata nodded quickly, her voice barely above a whisper. Why yes, please. As you are, her father said, you may go. Return within 2 hours. The Anbu escorted Hinata through the village to the hospital, where soft lantern light glowed through the windows. Inside the room, Hinata found Asuma, Anko, Kiba, and Shino already there. Their sensei rested peacefully, breathing evenly. Hinata stepped closer, her hands folded. Asuma-sensei. Will she be okay? Asuma smiled gently. She just needs time and careful care. The healers say a master like Tsunade could help her recover faster. Hinata relaxed slightly. Naruko-kun, Naruko-san, said this morning that she and Jiraiya-sama were going to find Tsunade. The room brightened with hope. That's great news, Asuma said softly. Anko crossed her arms with a playful grin. See? Everything's lining up. She'll wake up soon enough. Asuma nodded, looking at their resting friend. When she does, I want to thank her properly, for everything. Anko raised an eyebrow, smiling. About time you said that. While they spoke quietly, Hinata moved to stand beside Kiba and Shino, grateful to be among friends. She looked once more at her sensei, then out the window toward the distant road. Somewhere out there, Naruko was doing her best, just as she always did. And Hinata promised herself she would keep growing too. Kiba gently scratched the top of Akamaru's head, smiling as the little dog wagged his tail. I really hope Kurenai-sensei is going to be okay, Kiba said. And when she is, I'm going to train harder than ever so no one ever hurts my pack again. His confidence wasn't quite the same as Naruko's energetic optimism, but it still helped Hinata feel a little braver. She smiled softly. Shino adjusted his glasses. Kiba, while I admire your determination, charging ahead without preparation would not be wise. The opponent you are thinking of is extremely skilled. Growth takes patience and careful training. Kiba crossed his arms and nodded. Yeah. I guess that just means I need to work even harder. Hinata clasped her hands together. I keep wondering. Why were they so interested in Naruko-chan? Kiba blinked. Oh, good point. Why would anyone focus on her like that? Hinata straightened, surprised by her own courage. Naruko-chan is amazing, she said quickly, then blushed and looked down. Shino nodded in agreement. That is true. Naruko has grown tremendously. Her determination, creativity, and kindness have helped her overcome many challenges. Others are beginning to notice her potential. Kiba scratched his cheek. Okay, she's impressive. Still, it makes you wonder. That question stayed with Hinata. There had to be a reason why the teachers had reacted so quickly when Naruko was in trouble. Maybe it was connected to why some villagers treated Naruko differently. Hinata made a quiet promise to herself, she would learn the truth. And when Hinata Hyuga made a promise, she meant it. Elsewhere, Sasuke felt unsettled. After leaving the hospital, he had planned to train alone, but instead he encountered his new teammate, Sai. Sai's calm behavior and unusual comments left Sasuke more confused than relaxed. Sai had given everyone nicknames, watched people without explaining why, and asked unexpected questions about feelings and favorites. During their sparring practice, Sai's strange ink drawings moved in surprising ways, forcing Sasuke to stay alert. Sasuke didn't want to admit it, but Sai's skills were impressive. When Sai finally left, saying he would see him at the meeting spot the next day, Sasuke felt no closer to his goal. He decided he would speak with Kakashi-sensei later. As he returned home, another voice stopped him. Sasuke-kun, are you alright? Sakura asked with concern. I've been worried. Sasuke paused. I'm fine, he said. I ran into my brother, but everything is under control. Sakura hesitated. Do you know why they're watching Naruko so closely? Sasuke shook his head. No. He didn't feel ready to share what he knew. Sakura nodded slowly. Is everyone else okay? He turned toward her, his expression serious but tired. Sakura, I need some time alone right now. I understand, she said quietly, though her voice carried worry. Sasuke went inside, hoping rest would clear his thoughts. Sakura walked home under the evening sky, still concerned for Naruko and her friends. Far away, Sai delivered his report to his superior, calmly describing Sasuke's strengths and areas where he still needed growth. In Sai's careful words, Sasuke was capable, but still learning what it meant to connect with others. And throughout the village, Naruko Uzumaki continued forward, unaware of how many people were thinking about her, not because of fear, but because of the bright future she was slowly creating through kindness, effort, and never giving up. Naruko yawned softly as she settled into bed, pulling her blanket up to her chin. She wore her cozy sleeping clothes and a funny walrus-shaped nightcap she always packed on trips because it made her smile. The room was quiet and calm, and she had chosen one of the two beds. Her friend Shin was sleeping on a padded mat nearby. She thought about saying sorry for taking the bed, but decided she would make it up to him tomorrow with breakfast. She had never felt this tired before. Then she remembered all the shadow copies she had used while practicing earlier. When they disappeared, their tiredness came back to her all at once. Naruko laughed quietly at herself. No wonder she felt like a sleepy cloud. Still, she felt proud. She had learned a new technique in just one day and had even started figuring out another. Step by step, she was growing stronger and wiser, and that made her heart feel warm. Tomorrow would be another full day of learning. Shin had promised to show her a clever trick to help her use her tools more carefully and responsibly, and she was excited to keep improving her hand-to-hand skills in a safe and controlled way. Naruko loved learning, not to show off, but to become someone who could help others. As she lay there, her thoughts drifted to Sakura. Naruko admired her kindness and determination. She wondered what it would be like to be someone others could look up to one day, maybe even a leader. But she reminded herself that true friendships, and any future feelings, should always be built on respect and honesty. She wanted to be liked for who she was, not for any title she might earn someday. Her thoughts wandered next to Shikamaru, who was busy planning strategies for an upcoming friendly village challenge that focused on teamwork and problem solving, not fighting. Naruko trusted him. He was smart, thoughtful, and always tried to do what was best for everyone. Finally, her mind rested on thoughts of her father. Her feelings were tangled, happy, confused, and a little sad all at once. She knew he had made hard choices to protect others, and even if it still hurt, she believed he cared deeply. One day, she hoped to understand everything better. For now, she decided it was okay to feel many emotions at once. Naruko took a slow breath and smiled faintly. She was learning, growing, and finding her own path. Wrapped in warmth and calm, she drifted into a peaceful sleep. Day 2 of Hokage training. Day 2 of Hokage training began far too early for Naruko's liking. The sun was barely awake, and breakfast had been much smaller than she thought was fair. She made her complaints known to her teacher, Jiraiya, with crossed arms and a pout. Jiraiya only laughed. Think of it as motivation, kid. The better you do today, the sooner we'll get a proper lunch. I might even help pay for it. Naruko sighed but nodded. All right. So what's the plan? More chakra practice and hand-to-hand training? You'll still practice your special chakra technique every day, Jiraiya said, but today we're mixing things up. Start by making some shadow clones. Naruko formed the familiar hand sign. With a soft pop, 13 copies of her appeared around the clearing. Jiraiya looked them over and began dividing them into groups. He handed 7 clones small water balloons. Your job is to focus on chakra control. Be patient and steady. If one breaks, there are extras here. One clone raised her hand eagerly. What if we finish early? Jiraiya smiled. Then you earn the rest of the day off. But don't rush, learning well matters more than learning fast. Next, he pointed 3 clones toward another instructor named Shin. You'll work on movement skills. Smooth steps, good balance, and clear focus. Finally, Jiraiya created a clone of his own and gestured to the last group. You 3 are with me. We're practicing a skill every future leader needs, observation and listening. The original Naruko blinked. Observation? Jiraiya nodded. Understanding people and the world around you is just as important as being strong. Soon, the training field was busy with focused practice. Naruko followed Jiraiya toward the village, curiosity written all over her face. How do we learn observation this early? She asked. Jiraiya chuckled. The morning is perfect if you know where to look. People are honest when they're tired and calm. As they walked, Naruko thought carefully. If I want to be Hokage, why do I need to learn this instead of just training harder? Jiraiya stopped and looked at her kindly. Because a good leader understands effort. If you know how something is done, you can respect it, guide it, and improve it. That's how you protect everyone. Naruko nodded slowly. So I learn it to understand others better. Exactly, Jiraiya said. They stopped in front of a small, simple diner. Naruko tilted her head. This place? Yes, Jiraiya replied. It's where people talk freely over warm food. Listening is the first step to learning. Naruko smiled. Maybe today wasn't just about training her strength, it was about growing wiser, too. And that, she realized, was part of becoming Hokage. Kaiden, do you have any idea where Kakashi-sensei is? Sakura asked, her patience clearly wearing thin as she glanced at Naruko's temporary replacement. She still could not understand how things had turned out this way. Somehow, fate had managed to give them someone even more confusing than Naruko usually was. Sakura found herself missing Naruko's cheerful questions and boundless energy. At least Naruko always meant well. Thinking of Naruko made Sakura's expression soften. The events of the previous day lingered in her thoughts. A long briefing had taken place, and Sakura could not shake her concern. Naruko had been separated from the team for her own safety, and while Sakura trusted the adults to protect her, worry still crept in. Naruko was her friend, after all, and Sakura cared deeply about her well-being. "No, Sai, we don't know," Sakura replied. "We'll just wait for Kakashi-sensei." Sai tilted his head thoughtfully. "Would it not be more efficient to train while we wait?" Before Sakura could respond, Sasuke spoke calmly. "No. We do not know what instructions he will give us. It is better to conserve our energy." Sai paused, processed this, and nodded. "That is logical. Thank you, Sasuke." Sasuke blinked in surprise, then looked away. Sakura almost smiled. At that very moment, Kakashi-sensei appeared at the path's edge, walking casually as though he had all the time in the world. He waved at his students with one hand while holding a small, cheerful-looking book about teamwork in the other. "It's good to see everyone looking alert," Kakashi-sensei said kindly. "And you must be Sai. Welcome to the team." Sai bowed his head politely. "Thank you, sensei." Kakashi placed his book away and held up two small bells that chimed softly in the breeze. "Since we're working together today, I think it's time for a teamwork exercise." Sakura and Sasuke both sighed in unison. Sai blinked. "Am I missing something?" Kakashi's visible eye curved with a smile. "This is a tradition passed down through generations. The bell test. Your goal is to work together and take these bells from me." He clipped the bells to his belt and checked the time. "You have until early afternoon. If you succeed, lunch is on me." Sakura's eyes lit up just a little. "If you don't," Kakashi continued gently, "then we try a long chore mission together. Now then. Begin." In a swirl of movement, the three Genin scattered into the training grounds. Blossom emoji, elsewhere, Naruko's training. Several Naruko shadow clones sat in a circle, each holding a water balloon carefully in their hands. Okay, one clone said, placing her hands on her hips. "We're supposed to shape our energy smoothly, right? What if we spin it slower?" Another suggested. "Or focus on balance instead of power?" A third added. The calmest clone raised her hand. "Let's all try different ideas. Whatever works, works." One thoughtful clone stared at her balloon, eyes narrowing in concentration. Naruko had learned that sometimes strength was not about pushing harder, but about control. She gently focused her energy, keeping it steady and even, imagining it forming a perfect, peaceful shape. "Stay smooth. Stay calm," she whispered. The balloon trembled slightly but held together. She smiled. "I think I'm getting it." Far away, Naruko herself felt a warm sense of progress, even without knowing why. Learning was happening, step by step. Glowing star emoji, closing note. Naruko's journey is not about being perfect. It is about trying, learning, and caring for others. With patience, kindness, and teamwork, she continues to grow stronger every day. And no matter where she is, her friends are always thinking of her. Naruko and the lesson of focus. Naruko had created several shadow clones to help with her training, each sent to practice a different skill. She believed teamwork, even with herself, was the best way to grow. Clone B suddenly paused. She heard strange echoing sounds drifting through the forest, like the wind humming through hollow trees. It startled her at first, and she wondered if the forest spirits from old stories were nearby. Taking a deep breath, she reminded herself not to panic and stood ready, focusing on staying calm. Clone C had a different challenge. She kept seeing familiar figures walking calmly across a wide field. They did not speak or notice her, and they repeated the same path again and again, like actors in a play that never ended. It felt confusing and tiring, and soon Clone C curled up, covering her ears and trying to think clearly. "This feels like an illusion," she whispered. Remembering her academy lessons, Clone C carefully slowed her breathing and focused her energy just as her teacher had taught her. She formed the correct hand sign and said clearly, "Release." The scenery faded, and the field vanished. Not long after, Clone A and Clone B reached the same realization and freed themselves as well. The three clones met and nodded proudly at one another. They had learned to recognize distractions and overcome them together. Suddenly, a friendly puff of smoke appeared, and their mentor's clone stood nearby, smiling warmly. "Well done," the mentor said. You all learned faster this time. That shows growth. The clones beamed. They faced a few more harmless illusions, silly sounds, tempting smells of favorite foods, and funny distractions, but each time, they broke free more quickly than before. Elsewhere, 2 of Naruko's clones were practicing movement techniques with another teacher named Shin. One clone disappeared by accident after missing a landing, which made Naruko briefly shiver when the memory returned to her. Still, she trusted the process. You've made excellent progress, Shin said calmly. You have mastered the quick movement technique. Really? One clone asked, eyes shining. That's amazing, said the other. Shin nodded. One could say you are learning like a future leader. The clones laughed softly, proud and motivated. Before dispersing, they asked to continue learning about chakra threads, thin lines of energy used for careful control and creativity. Shin considered this. They are difficult and require patience, he warned. We'll try our best, the clones promised. They focused carefully, guiding energy to their fingertips and shaping it slowly. It was challenging, but they enjoyed the process and imagined all the helpful ways the skill could be used someday. Meanwhile, the real Naruko took a lunch break with her traveling mentor. They stopped at a small stand and shared a quiet meal. When do we start the next lesson? Naruko asked. Her mentor smiled. Every moment is a lesson. Watching, listening, and learning from people is just as important as practicing techniques. As they talked, a polite young fan approached her mentor, asking for an autograph and sharing how inspiring the stories were. After a kind exchange, the fan thanked them and hurried off, clearly happy. Naruko watched with curiosity. Learning isn't always loud or flashy, her mentor said gently. Sometimes it's about understanding people and paying attention. Naruko nodded, feeling a little wiser. With renewed determination, she finished her meal and stood up. All right, she said confidently. I'm ready to keep learning. And with that, her journey continued, bright, hopeful, and full of possibilities. A quiet turning point in the village. This meeting feels unnecessary, Hyashi, one council member said with a tired sigh. We have already agreed to accept her. Hyashi Hyuga folded his hands calmly. Acceptance is only the first step. My question is whether you will support her decisions when she begins to lead, or quietly work against her. The room grew still. Another council member spoke up. We have the right to disagree. Hyashi nodded. Of course. Disagreement helps a village grow. But cooperation helps it thrive. If you work with me, there will be far fewer reasons for conflict. You place too much faith in how much influence you believe you will gain, the first council member replied. Hyashi did not raise his voice. Influence fades when it is forced. But guidance lasts when it is earned. Naruko Uzumaki is young, and she has grown up without family support. If offered honest mentorship, she will listen. Not because she is weak, but because she wants to learn. One of the council members hesitated. Why do you distrust Danzo's approach so strongly? Hyashi paused, choosing his words carefully. Because leadership is not about rigidity. It is about balance. Strength is important, but so are patience, understanding, and cooperation. Naruko deserves guidance that teaches all of these things. For her sake, and for the village's future. And why would she agree to your proposal? Someone asked. She has no obligation. Hyashi's expression softened. Because I will be honest with her. I will also make an important announcement regarding the future of my clan. Once she understands the full picture, I believe she will choose to help. Questions in the afternoon air. Elsewhere in the village, Hinata Hyuga walked quietly along the streets, listening to conversations drifting through the air. People spoke in hushed tones about recent events involving Naruko, and Hinata's curiosity tugged at her heart. She's stronger than people expect, one shinobi said. I think she's just learning how to use her abilities, another replied. She has a lot of potential. Hinata hid behind a wall, not wanting to interrupt, but wanting to understand. Why did everyone seem so focused on Naruko lately? Hinata? A cheerful voice called out. Hinata jumped and turned to see Hana Inuzuka smiling beside her. Hana, Hinata said quickly. Hana waved her hand. Relax. I was just finishing up my rounds. What are you doing back here? Hinata blushed. I was just listening. Hana laughed softly. Curiosity is not a crime. Let me guess. You're worried about Naruko. Hinata nodded. Well, Hana said gently, Naruko carries something special. Not dangerous. Just different. Some adults don't like what they don't understand. Hinata looked thoughtful. I just want her to be happy. Hana smiled. That already tells me you're a good friend. Dash. Watching and waiting. Later that day, two travelers rested in the trees outside the village, observing quietly. You know, one of them said lazily, this waiting thing is boring. The other kept her eyes closed, calm and patient. We are here to learn, not to rush. But still, the first replied, grinning, a little excitement wouldn't hurt. No, the second said firmly. What matters is understanding Naruko Uzumaki. She is not what rumors make her out to be. The first traveler sighed. Fine. I'll behave. Good, came the reply. Because the future depends on choices made with care. Dash. A bright path forward. As the sun dipped lower, Naruko laughed somewhere in the village, chasing a cat down the street and apologizing when it darted away. She did not know of the discussions happening around her, or the plans quietly forming. But she was learning every day. Learning kindness. Learning responsibility. Learning how to grow into someone others could believe in. And that, more than anything else, would shape her future. All right, Naruko said with a bright grin, placing her hands on her hips. Your turn to play I Spy, Itachi-san. Itachi simply folded his arms and closed his eyes. He was not fond of games, especially ones that tested patience, but he stayed quiet. Naruko noticed and softened her smile, realizing not everyone enjoyed the same things she did. That was something she was learning more about every day. High above the field, hidden carefully among the leaves, a curious plant-like scout observed quietly. Its job was only to watch and learn, never to cause trouble. Still, Naruko's training had sharpened her awareness. Below, Sensei Jiraiya gathered everyone together. Several helpful copies of Naruko stood nearby, each eager and focused. Well, Sensei Jiraiya asked kindly, what did you discover during practice? One of the copies raised her hand proudly. We tried lots of ways to improve our spinning energy technique. None worked yet, but we learned a lot. That's wonderful, Sensei Jiraiya said warmly. Learning comes from trying. Now, how about the illusion lessons? Another copy smiled. Naruko did great at noticing when things didn't feel real. Naruko blinked. Illusions? That's what you taught them? Sensei Jiraiya chuckled. Understanding tricks of the mind is an important skill. Naruko, would you like to show me your movement technique now? She nodded and moved gracefully from place to place, appearing and reappearing with confidence. As she landed softly on a tree branch, she paused. Sensei, she said thoughtfully, something up here doesn't feel quite right. She focused, took a breath, and spoke clearly. I think there's an illusion hiding nearby. Release. The leaves rustled gently, and the hidden scout revealed itself, not frightened, but surprised. Oh. The scout said cheerfully. You noticed me already? That's impressive. Sensei Jiraiya stepped forward calmly. We're heading out soon. It's best if you return and let your friends know we're moving on. The scout nodded. No problem. I just wanted to learn. With a polite wave, it melted back into the forest, leaving the clearing peaceful once more. Naruko looked at Sensei Jiraiya. Was that someone important? Sensei Jiraiya nodded. There are groups out there interested in learning about others. It's our job to stay alert and kind, but also smart. Naruko smiled, feeling proud of how much she had grown. Where are we heading next? Sensei Jiraiya gestured toward the trees. A town called Arioiko, also known as Rebirth Town. It's a place where people start fresh. Naruko's eyes sparkled with excitement. A new place means new lessons. And together, they set off, learning, growing, and looking forward to what came next. Wait, I thought we were going to that village you mentioned, what was it called again? Naruko complained, sitting on a patch of grass as she rubbed her tired eyes. They had been walking for nearly 2 miles, and the makeshift campsite didn't feel very comfortable. Jiraiya chuckled softly, shaking his head. Well, we already spent the money for the night at that hotel we had to leave in a hurry, so I didn't want to spend more. Besides, this town doesn't have much for research. We can wait until morning. He gestured around at the dirt ground they were on. And as I said, the town's called Arioiko. Kinda superstitious, but a nice place overall. Shin nodded thoughtfully. My studies of local villages in the Land of Fire show similar patterns. Although. He paused as Jiraiya raised a finger, signaling him to hold back, and Shin continued quietly, there might be a chance it's more modern than expected. Naruko didn't pay much attention to the word modernized. She was too tired, yawning as she stretched her arms. Fine, Whatever. Wake me up if you need me, she said, plopping down against a tree whose roots had naturally formed a little seat. Almost immediately, she dozed off. Jiraiya rolled his eyes. She should know better by now. Guess we only have 2 shifts tonight. Shin, you take the first watch. I need some rest. He unrolled a scroll, and with a flourish, a small tent popped up, big enough for all 3 of them. Naruko could have waited a minute for something more comfortable, but oh well, he muttered, ducking inside to get some sleep. Shin glanced toward Naruko and the tent, feeling a bit uneasy. Already, her determination and instinct were making him question parts of his training. Shaking it off, he decided to patrol the perimeter of their camp. It might be useful for all 3 of them. The next morning, Naruko woke up when a ray of sunlight streamed through the tree canopy, landing directly on her face. She groaned and rubbed her eyes. Wow! That was actually a good sleep. Hey, Jiraiya-sensei, Shin-san. Why didn't you wake me earlier? I want to train. The tent and her companions were gone. On her bag, a small note read. Sorry, Naruko, but we'll be back later. Go into town, and don't do anything reckless. Naruko rolled her eyes. Of course. Should have expected that. Jiraiya-sensei's probably researching something. Still. I wanted to train. She swung her bag over her shoulder and started walking toward the town, doing a few playful hop steps to wake herself up. I wish I had a water balloon, she muttered, smiling at her own silliness. From the trees above, Shin and Jiraiya quietly watched her. Jiraiya-sama, do you really think this is a good idea? Shin whispered. I know, kid, Jiraiya replied, his voice calm. But this is a test for her. I just hope she handles it well. Fortunately, Naruko found the town without getting lost. After about half an hour of careful walking along the outskirts, she entered a quiet street. Surprisingly, the town seemed almost deserted, and those she saw moved quickly, avoiding eye contact. It reminded her of a village she had visited long ago where people seemed oppressed, but she wasn't going to let that stop her. She wandered toward the local market, hoping to find some fruit. The stores were poorly stocked, and the shopkeepers seemed anxious. Naruko's instincts told her something was off, this village needed help. Suddenly, the crowd scattered, moving in a frenzy. Naruko's eyes immediately picked up the source, a tall figure standing calmly in the middle of the street. He seemed different, almost electric with authority. The man wore a long white coat decorated with strange red patterns and black pants. On his feet were red sandals. His eyes were wide, bright blue, and seemed to dart around, taking in the fearful reactions of the villagers. In his hands, he held a strange, intimidating tool that looked like a complicated scythe, though Naruko sensed it wasn't meant to hurt anyone, just to control the crowd. Hey! I just want some breakfast. The man called out in a loud, demanding voice. Eggs, fish, bread, anyone? The villagers froze, terrified. One young man with ginger hair clutched a small bag of groceries and froze in place. Naruko stepped forward, determination shining in her eyes. It's not right to scare people or take what isn't offered, she said firmly, gently taking the man's wrist to stop him from grabbing the groceries. The man blinked, surprised. You're different from the others. I am Priest Vegeta, and I guide this village. Move along, shinobi. Naruko didn't back down. If you're supposed to be helping this village, Vegeta-san, then you should protect them, not frighten them. Everyone deserves kindness and safety. The ginger-haired man tugged gently at her sleeve, thankful for the intervention. Priest Vegeta tilted his head, studying Naruko with curious, wide eyes. You truly care about them? I do, she said confidently. And I'm going to make sure everyone can live without fear, starting today. The man hesitated, then slowly nodded, realizing that perhaps this young ninja wasn't like anyone else he had encountered. Naruko's eyes sparkled with excitement. She didn't know exactly how she would fix the village's problems, but she knew she would. And somehow, she had a feeling this adventure was only just beginning. Naruko Uzumaki had always believed that courage meant standing up for others, even when things felt confusing or unfair. She stood at the edge of a quiet village street, her bright eyes watching as a nervous man bowed deeply before a tall traveler in priestly robes. Please, the man said softly, his hands trembling. Take what you need. I only ask that you show kindness. Naruko stepped forward at once. That isn't right, she said firmly. You worked hard for your supplies. Nobody should pressure you into giving them away. The robed traveler, who called himself Priest Vegeta, turned and smiled calmly. Young one, he said, I only ask people to reflect on their choices and show devotion. Naruko crossed her arms. Devotion should never come from fear. It should come from understanding. The man beside her looked relieved but still worried. Please, he whispered to Naruko. You don't know what he's like. Naruko knelt so she could meet his eyes. Then help me understand. Cooked rice emoji, a shared meal and honest truths. Later, Naruko sat at a small wooden table inside the man's home. He introduced himself as Kazama, and his wife Honoko offered Naruko a warm bowl of rice and soup. Their kindness filled the room, even though worry lingered in the air. Kazama explained, Priest Vegeta arrived months ago. At first, he seemed harmless. But he began convincing people that they were weak without him. He made them afraid to trust themselves. Naruko listened carefully. That kind of influence can hurt people's hearts, she said gently. Honoko nodded. We forgot how strong we were on our own. Naruko smiled. Then let's remind everyone. Glowing star emoji, a new kind of strength. Instead of anger, Naruko chose wisdom. Instead of fighting, she chose unity. She visited the so-called cathedral, which turned out to be an old building filled with echoes and silence. Naruko didn't challenge Priest Vegeta with threats. She challenged him with questions. Why do you lead with fear, she asked, when people grow best with hope? Villagers gathered, listening. Slowly, they began to speak for themselves. They shared ideas, helped one another, and remembered their own strength. Seeing this, Priest Vegeta realized something important. Power that comes from fear never lasts. Quietly, he chose to leave, seeking a better path elsewhere. Hope restored. With the village free from doubt, laughter returned. Children played. Neighbors shared meals again. Kazama bowed to Naruko, smiling this time. You didn't save us with force, he said. You saved us by believing in us. Naruko adjusted her headband and grinned. That's what being a shinobi means to me. As she walked toward her next adventure, the village stood tall behind her, filled with something stronger than fear. Hope. Sakura noticed the tension in the air and stepped between the two boys before it could grow awkward. Let's all take a breath, she said kindly. Sigh, teasing Sasuke like that isn't a good idea. Nicknames usually happen naturally, after people become friends. She smiled thoughtfully. Like Naruko and Sasuke. They argue a lot, but somehow their silly nicknames sound more like signs of trust than insults. Sasuke didn't respond right away, but he quietly agreed. Over the past few days, he had been thinking about Naruko more than he expected. She had once called him her friend without hesitation. At first, he thought it was strange, but now he realized it mattered. She believed in herself, worked hard, and never gave up. That kind of determination was inspiring. Sai tilted his head. I understand. Thank you, Sakura-chan. I hope one day we are close enough to have nicknames too, especially when Naruko-sama returns. Sakura blinked. Why do you always call her Sama? Before Sai could answer, he went quiet, having learned something important. Naruko had already left the village to begin her training journey. Elsewhere, under the calm afternoon sky, Shikamaru walked through the quiet streets near his family's home. He had been talking with his father earlier about future plans for cooperation between villages, not conflict, but teamwork. The goal was to help everyone grow stronger together without misunderstandings. Now free from heavy thoughts, Shikamaru lay down beneath a tree and watched the clouds drift lazily across the sky. That one looks like a deer, he muttered. Nearby, an Anbu guard stood watch. Shikamaru glanced over and spoke casually. You're doing a good job, Anbu-san. It's nice knowing the village is protected. The masked shinobi nodded politely and moved on, relieved that nothing unusual had happened. Shikamaru smiled faintly and returned his attention to the clouds. Troublesome, he said, but this time, it wasn't a complaint, just a familiar word for a peaceful day. Far from the village, Naruko Uzumaki traveled forward with a bright smile and steady steps. She didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but she believed in herself. Every lesson she learned, every friend she made, helped her grow into someone stronger, not just in skill, but in heart. She promised herself one thing as she continued her journey. No matter what happened, she would always protect her friends, spread kindness, and keep moving forward. And that was more than enough. Naruko's dawn resolve. Naruko Uzumaki stood quietly in an open field, her bright eyes carefully studying everything around her. The situation had been meant as a training challenge, not a real battle, and she had taken every precaution she knew. She had lured the mysterious traveler known as Priest Vegeta far from the town of Arioako so no one would be disturbed. Naruko had been told to use strange tricks, so she relied on her clever thinking instead of rushing in. She sent out her shadow clones to distract him, hoping to separate him from his unusual staff, which seemed to be the source of his confidence. Naruko moved swiftly, using her speed technique to stay out of reach, testing her own skills and patience. Even after many attempts, the challenge remained unresolved. Still, Naruko believed she had time to figure things out. She always did. Then something strange happened. The field slowly filled with people, not in danger, but watching quietly. Naruko recognized friendly faces from Arioako and even people she cared about from her home village. Confused, she looked around, wondering how they had arrived so suddenly. A bright light shimmered across the field, warm but overwhelming, and Naruko squeezed her eyes shut. When she opened them again, everything felt wrong. The field was empty. The people were gone. The challenge, the traveler, the noise, it had all vanished. Naruko felt her heart race as she realized this was not real at all. She sat up suddenly in her sleeping bag, breathing fast. Morning light filtered into the large travel tent where her mentors rested nearby. They did not stir, trusting Naruko to find her calm on her own. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that it had only been a dream, one born from worry and responsibility. Carefully, and fully clothed as always, Naruko stepped outside into the early morning air. The sky was painted with soft colors as the sun prepared to rise. Cool wind brushed past her, clearing her thoughts. She closed her eyes and listened to the quiet world waking up. "I'm still learning," she whispered to herself. "And that's okay." She thought about her friends back home, how clever Shikamaru always was, how kind the people at the ramen stand had been, how every village had struggles but also hope. Naruko wanted to be someone who helped bring people together, not someone ruled by fear or doubt. Instead of practicing loudly or rushing back to train, she calmly climbed a nearby tree and sat among the branches, watching the sunrise. She promised herself she would keep growing stronger, not just in skill, but in understanding. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Naruko would face them with kindness, courage, and a steady heart. And as the sun rose higher, she smiled, ready for a new day. Naruko remembered a famous comic book she had seen in the village market, one that the townsfolk adored. It was about a hero called the Bird Woman. Naruko could only sneak glances at the comics when she had a free moment or if someone had left one lying around, but she was completely fascinated by the Bird Woman. In that world, there were no shinobi, only people with extraordinary powers. Bird Woman could soar through the sky and stop mischievous troublemakers, always capturing them without ever harming them. The most dangerous villain in the series was called the Critic. She despised everything in the world and caused chaos wherever she went. But no matter how mean she was, Bird Woman never gave up on catching her, and always made sure she faced justice rather than being destroyed. Some readers complained that Bird Woman let evil win because she didn't get rid of the Critic forever. Bird Woman explained that it was against her moral code to harm anyone permanently, but Naruko couldn't help pondering the question herself: should someone stop bad people permanently if it meant protecting others, or was there a better way? Naruko had tried thinking like the Bird Woman when she trained, but it wasn't easy. Could she truly stop people who wanted to hurt others without hurting them herself? Could she grow strong enough to protect her friends and everyone in the village? Even her father, a legendary hero of the Land of Fire, had done incredible things to protect their home, but at a great cost. Could Naruko hope to follow in his footsteps, or could she become an even kinder, braver kind of hero? The sun rose over the village as she sat on the hill, deep in thought. Big questions didn't have easy answers, but she knew one thing: to be a hero, she needed to train hard. She needed to be strong enough to protect those she cared about and stop anyone who tried to hurt them. She hadn't accomplished much the day before, so she made a promise to herself. Today, she would work 10 times harder. She would finish the first step of her new technique, the Rasengan, at the very least. And maybe, just maybe, she could take another step toward becoming worthy of the Hokage hat one day. Meanwhile, Kakashi Hatake, their teacher, was quietly enjoying his own morning ritual. Kakashi was a man of few priorities, but the village came first. Then came his students, Naruko and the others, each of them important in different ways. Sai, being new, came a little further down the list, and Kakashi reminded himself often to keep an eye on him. After that, his old friend Obito held a place in his heart, followed by memories of Minato, and then, last but certainly not least, his favorite books. Kakashi loved reading Icha Icha. He could get lost in the pages for hours, enjoying the stories and taking breaks from the seriousness of village life. Today, he sat on the wall by the village gates, reading quietly as the sun rose, letting the peaceful morning carry away his worries. He had been restless the night before, thinking about his friend's well-being, so this moment of calm was well earned. But peace never lasted long in the land of fire. From the distance, Kakashi's keen senses picked up the sound of running footsteps. Not just one pair, but two, Guy and one of his students. That could only mean trouble. Kakashi smirked behind his mask. Guy loved to challenge him, to prove himself in his loud and energetic way. And today, Kakashi could already guess, Guy had another challenge in mind. The lazy morning he had hoped for was about to vanish, but he didn't mind too much. After all, there was no better way to train heroes than by giving them a little push. Which meant she wasn't making her exit, since she knew very well that Rock Lee was still in the hospital and couldn't move much on his crutches. The pace that Guy and his usual training group were keeping, judging by the sound of their steps, was far too fast for anyone on crutches. So, someone else must have decided to join Guy's morning training. Someone actually willing to jump into that bright green jumpsuit and those enthusiastic eyebrows because they genuinely wanted to. Naruko's curiosity piqued. She closed the book she had been reading at the edge of the training field and quietly crept closer to see who was brave, or perhaps a little crazy, enough to train with Guy before sunrise. From Guy, the energy practically radiated. He had been feeling low for weeks after Rock Lee's accident during his battle with Gaara. Coupled with the troubling news about the missing ninja Itachi Uchiha, Guy had been feeling a bit unyouthful. But yesterday changed everything, when someone approached him with a goal, to better herself, to grow stronger, and to become the best version of herself. Guy was ignoring, for the moment, the tiny hint of stubbornness behind this request. Come on. Those weights are nothing. Embrace your power of youth and push forward, Guy shouted, practically vibrating with excitement. Naruko grunted as she struggled under a modest set of ankle weights. Well, they are something. 10 kilograms slows anyone down a bit. She pushed herself harder. By the way, how much did Lee's weights weigh again? I saw them during the academy exam. Guy beamed proudly. Ah, impressive. That was 170 kilograms on each leg. Or maybe 180? Either way, Lee never gave up. Incredible determination. So, yours are heavier? Naruko asked cautiously, her eyebrows raised. Of course. A teacher must provide a shining example of youthfulness. 200 kilograms on each leg and 200 in my vest. That's 600 kilograms in total. Do you think you could ever reach that goal? Naruko's eyes widened. I'll stick to 10 for now, she murmured, shaking her head. Quietly, she thought, 600 kilograms? How can anyone even move like that? Guy laughed loudly, clapping his hands. The gates are ahead. That means 4 laps done. Only one more to go. Naruko groaned. Another one? Of course. Lee and I do 12 in the morning. But don't worry, you may rest after this next lap, it's your first day under my youth-filled training. Guy puffed his chest proudly, leaving Naruko silently regretting her decision to volunteer. As they approached the gates, a familiar figure appeared. Guy, enjoying your morning? Kakashi asked lazily, appearing as though he had just woken up. Guy spun around, grinning. Ah, my rival Kakashi. Are you ready to join me for 7 laps to awaken your youth? Kakashi groaned inwardly. Youth, youth, youth. He almost admired the energy, but that word. Perhaps another day, he said, eyeing Naruko. I am curious, since your friend Lee is in the hospital, did you decide to train with Guy instead? I have to say, I'm surprised to see you here, Naruko. Naruko huffed but kept moving. I didn't think you could wake up this early either, Kakashi-sensei. Well, normally I wouldn't, but the path of life had a little birdie wake me up so I could return it to its owner before it got eaten by a stray cat, Kakashi lied smoothly. Naruko's eyes narrowed. She could always tell when someone was bending the truth. You were reading a book by the gate again, weren't you? She accused. Like last time, when you got caught by Ino moving books for the civilian bookstore. Kakashi's eyes twinkled behind his mask. Ah. Mr. Whiskers was in danger, and I saved him. Surely that's worth some forgiveness. Guy, meanwhile, was beaming with pride at Naruko's determination. I would never leave Team 7 or Sasuke-sensei, Naruko said firmly. I'm here to learn from Guy to become stronger. Rock Lee is my friend, and I saw how hard he trained. I want to be able to make a difference too. I want to improve myself. Kakashi's heart softened. He realized she understood an important lesson most young shinobi had yet to learn. Strength comes from choosing to improve yourself, not being forced. So, you want to focus on physical training with Guy? He asked. Guy shook his head, clapping his hands. Her taijutsu is good, yes, but that is not why she came to me. She came to push herself to her limits, to grow stronger inside and out. Today marks the first step of her youthful journey. Naruko smiled, determination shining in her eyes. She knew this was only the beginning, but she felt ready. One step at a time, she would grow, not to beat anyone, but to become the best Naruko she could be. Sakura looked serious. I know I am not in the strongest shape as a shinobi yet, so I'm going to work harder. I'm going to expand my chakra reserve, become faster, and make my techniques sharper than ever. Kakashi noticed a flicker of determination in her eyes that he hadn't seen before. He felt pleased. Sakura had finally decided to take herself seriously as a ninja. With her already incredible chakra control and high intelligence, she had everything she needed to grow, she just needed drive. And now, she had it. Team 7 was going to thrive, even if Naruko wasn't around too. Well, be her usual chaotic self. Sakura clenched her fists. Then, I'm going to show Sai that I can handle him. He acts so superior, and I know he looks down on me. That smug smile needs a reality check. Guy and Kakashi exchanged nervous glances. Guy was thrilled to see someone so motivated to improve, but Sakura's plan sounded a bit extreme. Still, he reminded himself that her energy could be channeled into something positive, and he decided to support her growth. Kakashi, on the other hand, simply remembered yesterday's training and nodded knowingly. Flashback. The challenge had been Sai's idea. He wanted to fight Sakura while completely unarmed, his arms tied behind his back. He thought it would be a useful test for dealing with difficult situations. He had even declared Sakura to be the perfect opponent for his first attempt at fighting without weapons. Naturally, this made her furious. She was determined to show him she was no pushover. Kakashi tied Sai's arms behind his back, and the sparring match began. Sakura tried everything, punches, kicks, even a few tricky shuriken throws, but Sai danced around her attacks with surprising agility. A series of quick, precise moves left Sakura off balance for a moment, and Sai used the opening to lightly tap her shoulder, ending the bout. Sasuke helped Sakura to her feet while Sai untied himself and smiled innocently. Well, that was unexpected. It seems I've won, though I didn't know I would. You're talented, Sakura-san, but I'm impressed with how much you tried. Sakura flushed with embarrassment but refused to show it. She stormed off, muttering under her breath about revenge. Is she giving up? Sai asked naively, oblivious to her determination. Sasuke had to physically hold back a glare. Flashback ended. Kakashi couldn't blame her. She had been embarrassed and wanted to improve. Deciding it was time to refuel, he gave her some parting words. I wish you luck, Sakura. Just make sure you're at the meeting spot before I arrive. Don't let your personal training interfere with your responsibilities. Sakura pouted playfully. But you usually show up 2 hours late. Kakashi raised a finger. I didn't say on time. I said before I get there. She grinned, understanding, and sprinted off toward the training grounds. Kakashi shook his head with a small smile, quietly amused at her energy. Meanwhile, Naruko was already deep in training. Determined to make up for lost time, she had created 50 shadow clones to maximize her practice. Jiraiya protested, warning that it might be too much for her to handle, but Naruko's determination was unshakable. I can do this. All of it. And I will get stronger today, she said firmly. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow but let her proceed. 15 clones focused on perfecting the Rasengan, using balloons as practice targets. Every time a balloon escaped their grasp, frustration mounted, but they learned from every failure. Clone 44, Clone 46. You two are slacking. The goal is to pop the balloon, remember? Naruko's voice carried authority even though she was technically just another clone. Clone 46 crossed her arms. We know, Clone 1. Just because you're the leader doesn't mean you're perfect. Clone 1 narrowed her eyes. It's not about perfection. It's about effort. Focus your chakra, and make it count. Clone 44 struggled, dropping the balloon. It's hard, okay? I'm trying. Then try harder. Naruko encouraged. Both hands. Use both hands like I showed you. Suddenly, everything clicked. The clone's balloons started holding shape better, and small bursts of successful pops echoed across the field. Naruko's grin was triumphant. She had unlocked another step in mastering the Rasengan. Nearby, Another group of 15 clones were learning communication skills, how to negotiate, how to speak clearly, and how to handle problems without rushing. Jiraiya's clone acted as the teacher, keeping the group on track. Naruko, focused on both training and growth, realized that being strong wasn't just about physical power. It was about teamwork, strategy, and heart. And she was determined to become a ninja worthy of being Hokage, kind, clever, and unstoppable. Jiraiya's clone squinted at the group of Naruko clones lined up before him. "Sorry about that, you all look alike," he joked. The clones didn't find it funny. He pointed to one on the opposite side, trying not to make the same mistake again. "You?" Clone 25 paused thoughtfully. She didn't really know the answer, but curiosity bubbled up. "Are they strong?" The Sannin clone looked intrigued. "Why does it matter?" 25 shrugged. "I don't know. But if I had to spar with someone, I'd rather have Kakashi than Konohamaru on my team," she explained logically. Jiraiya nodded. "Close, but the key factor isn't just strength, it's value. A strong ninja may not help much in a team, while a clever or reliable ninja can make all the difference. That's why we choose alliances carefully, even if it doesn't seem obvious." "But doesn't some villages just not try very hard?" Clone 23 asked. Jiraiya shrugged. "Well, people aren't all bad, and most leaders mean well. But every place has its quirks." The clones groaned at his mysterious phrasing. Clone 25 even pulled out some tomatoes and started tossing them toward him. "Wait, where did you get tomatoes?" Jiraiya asked, startled as one bounced off his shoulder. 25 grinned. "I snuck them from the supply tent. Who even likes tomatoes anyway?" Jiraiya groaned. Note to self, never let clones throw vegetables at your face. A tomato landed on him anyway, and Clone 25 puffed when a shuriken accidentally came her way. Meanwhile, the real Naruko was sparring with the real Jiraiya. Taijutsu practice, as Jiraiya called it, was his way of teaching her to move and react, not just punch. He corrected her every time her stance or movement was off. "Look, Naruko, I'm trying to teach you proper moves, not tricks with clones. You can aim to be Hokage one day, but right now, you follow my lead. Got it?" Naruko nodded, even though she still felt frustrated. She remembered her friends' struggles and didn't want to repeat their mistakes. As she tried to dodge a sweeping punch, memories of the clone chaos distracted her for a split second. Jiraiya's fist connected lightly, and Naruko yelped as she bounced back, landing on the ground with a thump. "What happened there?" Jiraiya asked. Naruko gingerly touched her face. "Your clone distracted me. And, she threw tomatoes." Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. "Which tomatoes?" "The ones from the supply tent yesterday." Jiraiya groaned. "Those were for my stew. And you definitely had cup ramen in your bag too. I'm confiscating it for dinner." Naruko frowned. "But that's my ramen. And it wasn't even my fault, it was the clones." Jiraiya smirked. "And who do the clones take after? But if you really want it, you'll have to stop me." Naruko squared her shoulders. "Fine. No one messes with my ramen." Jiraiya grinned and assumed a stance. Naruko mirrored him, her determination shining. They clashed, exchanging careful punches and kicks. Naruko tried a 3-punch combo, but Jiraiya sidestepped 2 and blocked the third. She spun and kicked, but Jiraiya ducked, and she used the momentum to land a backflip, creating distance and regaining balance. "Better," Jiraiya said. "Keep your focus, Naruko. The key isn't just strength, it's thinking ahead." Naruko nodded, brushing herself off, eyes sparkling with determination. She was learning, and every tumble or misstep was just another step toward becoming a ninja who could protect her friends and village. "Naruko, if you keep running away, it'll only make it easier for me to confiscate your ramen," Jiraiya said with a mock sternness. This was enough to motivate her. With a determined grin, Naruko closed the distance and unleashed a flurry of precise punches and kicks. Jiraiya blocked each strike without showing it, secretly impressed. She was actually using the stances correctly and putting effort into each movement. He almost forgave the earlier tomato incident and her cheeky attitude. Almost. With a playful shake of his head, Jiraiya countered, and the sparring resumed. Tough love, as always, was more fun when you got to dish it out. Meanwhile, 10 of the remaining 20 clones were busy with a different challenge. Jiraiya had instructed Shin to help whittle down their numbers quickly, so he came up with a clever test. He told the clones to hit each other with kunai, but without disappearing. Believing it, the 10 clones vanished one by one in a flash, leaving Naruko momentarily bewildered. It was efficient, if slightly mischievous. The final 10 clones had a bigger task, practicing a more advanced jutsu. Shin guided them in performing the Katen, Grand Fireball Jutsu, a skill that required careful chakra control and precise hand seals. This technique was tricky, it needed focus, timing, and a lot of effort. Even Shin was sweating, realizing it was harder than it looked. Some clones ran off to grab water, while others paused, their cheeks flushed from the effort. The key, Shin muttered, is to channel the chakra properly. And breathe it out carefully. It sounded complicated, but with enough patience, even Naruko's clones could slowly learn it. By the time the sun began to set, Naruko, Shin, Jiraiya, and the remaining clones regrouped at the campsite. Many of the clones were tired but happy, proud of what they'd accomplished. "We did it!" Clone 1 exclaimed, chest puffed out. Clone 46 coughed quietly behind him. "Well, we sort of did," she admitted, smiling. "Show me then," Jiraiya said, nodding. Clone 1 and Clone 46 each grabbed a balloon, focusing their chakra carefully. Their second hands pressed on the top, shaping the energy. A few moments later, the balloon popped, drenching both clones in a harmless splash. They looked up, laughing and beaming at Jiraiya and Naruko. The real Naruko laughed too, proud of her team. "Not bad," Jiraiya said with a grin. "It's not as flashy as doing it with one hand, but a two-handed Rasengan is still a success. Congratulations. You've completed the first step." Cheers erupted from the clones and Naruko, their excitement lighting up the camp. It had been a long day, but finally, they had a reason to feel accomplished. Jiraiya didn't let the celebration last too long. Reaching into his bag, he pulled out something red and hard. "Catch," he called to Naruko. She caught the ball carefully, turning it in her hands. "What's this, sensei?" Jiraiya's smirk widened. Step 2, pop the ball. Groans and laughter filled the air. Naruko's training never failed to be challenging, but it was always an adventure, full of growth, teamwork, and unexpected fun. Dear viewers, that's all we have for this part today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed putting it together for you. There's much more coming your way, so stay tuned for the next videos, you won't want to miss what's coming up. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Your engagement truly keeps this journey going and helps me bring even better content to you. Thank you so much for watching and being part of this community. I can't wait to see you in the next video. Warm regards. 6 Path Weeb.